I'm Scotty P, and welcome back to the King of Arts. We're doing the final piece, the final part of this Criss Force picture. So, again, I filmed this probably 6 to 8 months ago, and I never got around to posting it. The picture took 5 hours end to end, so a lot of this video has been sped up and cut. We've done the subject line work, we've done the background line work, cleanup. There are a couple more things that I clean up in part 3, but this is mostly about coloring and rendering using those predefined color swatches I have off to the left. And I usually start like I have here, just putting in the midtones, and I'll get everything colored in as a midtone, and then I'll go back and throw in the highlights and the shadows. There are ways of using the selection tool where you can expand the selection a few pixels so that the selection bleeds into the line work, and then you can just use a fill tool to block in those larger colors. But I purposefully treat the coloring and rendering stage as I would with non-digital media. So I don't know, there's something relaxing about having the pen in hand and actually doing the coloring like you would a normal pen or pencil. So that's why, again, why this took so long is because I do things sometimes the hard way, but for me, it's the more enjoyable way. So I'm all for taking shortcuts, but when they take away from the experience, I'll revert back to doing it the harder way. And I'm sure everyone has their own processes. Right now, all I can see is that I haven't done his eyebrows. So I threw a grey, a mid-tone in the background. And the reason for that is it just lets me see more clearly where the colour has bled over the line work. By which I mean I've coloured outside the lines. So it lets me go back and fix up those little details. Normally I would just colour over the top and not worry about it. So when I get to colouring the background, I'll just colour over the top of it. But I'm using a colour gradient method for the floor and the mountains and the sky and the moon. So I was taking a bit of a different approach with colouring the background, and I didn't want that bleed to affect it when I do the selection part. I mentioned in part 2 I wasn't too concerned about the detail of this ship because I didn't want it to pull focus on the lightsaber and Yoda and Obi. So now we have in some background color. I can work on the mountains, realizing that it's the same color as the railing. Change that fairly quickly. didn't mind the planet being quite a contrast. Even though I didn't want it to pull focus, I wanted it to contrast heavily to show depth, because there's a few things sitting in front of that planet or moon, whatever it is. And when it comes time for the final render of that lightsaber, I think you'll see that it becomes the main focus. This is just pulling the background through, pulling those mountains through the railing. I didn't actually film rendering the lightsaber, but I'll talk a bit about it at the end. Now we're adding shadow to the banister, and we can start working on that gradient. Just selecting that whole mountain range. Not a complicated gradient, just a light to dark. Find the right position for it. Same with the floor. And I'll do the same with the sky. And I think the planet's the last thing that I apply the gradient to. And we just fix up the ship a bit. I cut that out, but yeah, it's just adding shadows, highlights to the ship. Throw a gradient on the planet and find where it sits. And then we put some lights underneath. I think the only thing left in the video is the main subject in the foreground, adding the shadows and highlights. Again, probably should have used reference material for this, but I pretty much just gauged where the light source might be and started blocking in shapes. Trial and error, see what looks good, what doesn't. That was an example of what doesn't. I'm quite a novice when it comes to creating shapes using highlights and shadows, but I think we got there in the end. Particularly with the robe. Quite an aggressive highlight on the boot because I wanted to show that it was a bit more reflective in the pants. So I end up having two light sources. I've got this foreground light creating these highlights and shadows that we're seeing at the moment. And then the lightsaber is going to provide a secondary light. So I wanted to tackle them both separately. And you can see there the lightsaber just has a soft brush color behind it to show that it's glowing. And then I just added pin lights along the sleeve and the side of his face and the hair, along the boot. Some shadows underneath, some blue shadows underneath. I'm not sure if you're supposed to use warm shadows with cool lights or cool shadows with cool lights. Again, not an expert, just threw it down because it looked good. And that's pretty much it. That's the picture. This was the first of the series. I hope you enjoyed it. The other ones I don't imagine will be quite as long, and I'll probably do them in real time, so drawing as I commentate over it. I'm Scotty P, the King of Arts, and I bloody love art. Thanks for watching.